We got to do something a little different, okay? We got to get off of this terminally online manosphere stuff. We got to do something interesting, okay? This is called Women Against Their Right to Vote. There's more than meets the eye, just like Transformers, robots in disguise. From Tara Monkney? I don't know. Say that.
There's a word for that thing.
This person, okay? It looks like an interesting watch. I'm definitely against women voting. I'm just kidding, guys. I am not against women voting. No, but I mean, it's interesting. Let's see what we got here. It's gonna be more manosphere stuff, I think. Actually, that's where you hear this the most. Maybe I'm wrong.
Is what used to be the West. This building is what used to be the Westminster Palace Hotel, the site of which the Women's National Anti-Suffrage League had their first meeting in July 1908. The league's aims were to oppose women being granted the parliamentary franchise, but it did support women voting in local and municipal elections. Spoiler.
Oh, okay, that's reasonable.
They did not achieve their goal. Us pesky little females can...
Cat became a member.
Hey, thank you, Puff Cat, for the small guy.
Now get our grubby little mitts on the ballot. It's political correctness gone mad. Now, you might be thinking, why wouldn't they want the vote? It's fun. They'd miss out on all the dogs at polling stations. Well, some of their reasons were actually quite interesting. More interesting than them being mere pick-me's vintage edition. But before I get into that, let me introduce myself.
I think the original reason why some women didn't want to vote is because they didn't want to have to like sign up for the draft and stuff, which, by the way, I don't blame you. So
my name is Tara Mooney, and this is the only channel on YouTube where all videos are written and produced by a cow. She couldn't be in the video today because she's actually voting in her local bovine council election.
Yeah, wait, hold on a second.
By a cow.
That cow's kind of bad. The cow's kind of bad. Not bad. Okay. That's kind of hot.
Sophie S.
You got a Patreon? Not this girl, the cow. Hey, thank you for the medium gut. Hey, Papa God, your content makes me feel a lot better after having a bad mental health day. So thank you so much for having an amazing personality and amazing content. Hey, I appreciate that. I really do. That means a lot to me. It does. I'm just take compliments poorly.
She couldn't be in the video today because she's actually voting in her local bovine council elections, which, funnily enough, the anti-suffragists would have been fine with. I can't vote in those because I'm not a cow. I'm not the cow, okay? So let's throw that conspiracy out of the window.
That's what I'm saying.
If you like and subscribe, she might appear in the next one.
I might have to watch the next one just so I can see that cow.
Today, I will be focusing on the women who fought against the rights that I enjoy today. But as it is International Women's...
But do women really enjoy the rights that they have today? Women, do you really enjoy having to go to work? Serious question. I know that there were some guys that were really bad and would basically, you know, make you do things you didn't want to because you had no financial power and couldn't leave them, but... now you have to go to work, which is basically the same thing. You have to stay in your job. You have no, because if you don't, you won't have any financial. I mean, like, you just kind of traded one demon for another. Okay, you know what I'm saying? I keep getting poisoned. I'm actually gonna have a meltdown. I'm actually gonna go. I'm gonna go ballistic. I'm gonna go crazy. I'm gonna go crazy. I'm gonna go crazy. Sorry, I'm going
today, I do want to give a quick shout out to the Equal Franchise Act of 1928, which allowed women over 21 to vote. There was also the Representation of the People Act in 1918, but
wait, are you saying that there was a point where like women got the right to vote, but they had to be a little older than men? That's kind of funny. I mean, it's not funny, it's terrible. But looking back, I can laugh. You know?
Count that because it was only for women over 30 who met certain property requirements, which is lame and not based, and
epic
I wouldn't have
capitalism.
qualified, so we don't count it because it's my channel, so it's about me.
Hey,
so there.
Nothing says that you respect the middle class more than not letting them vote if they don't own property. Renters, beware. Am I right?
So yeah, thanks to the Equal Franchise Act, I have the right to vote, the right to spoil my ballot, and the right to make a smooth transition into my sponsor segment. Heyo! The other day, I was Googling myself and the cow, and you'll never guess what I found.
Don't do that.
A satellite image of the exact location of the cow's editing quarters. I have been trying my darndest to hide her location, but you pesky little beavers keep getting closer and closer. To rectify this, I have swiftly relocated her to a new office space. Phew! That was a close call. On a serious note, I did Google myself and my family members, and it's quite spooky what came up. Most of it is innocuous stuff like where you went to school and worked, etc, etc. But it does make me wonder how much more information people can find with just a bit of Googling. In some cases, people can find your
Listen, if you find my search history, that's your trauma, not mine. You know, like I've already come to terms with the horrible things that I look at. So if you want to see something like that, it's your funeral. So whatever, dude. I don't care.
Your email address, where you go to the gym, and even your home address. Eek. The reason this information is accessible is because of data brokers, who profit from selling your information to robocallers, telemarketers, and spammers. But I have something that can help you with that, and that is today's sponsor, Aura. Aura will identify data brokers.
All right, guys, data brokers. Let's keep going. Woo!
According to American suffragist Carrie Chapman Catt, the enemy to suffrage was not men, but resistance to change. I mean, it was also men. They didn't help matters.
Hey, nobody's more resistant to change than men, am I right? I haven't even changed my underwear. Because, like, why do I need to, right? It does just fine.
Funnily enough, I found an archived article in The Atlantic from September 1903 called Why Women Do Not Wish the Suffrage by a man called Linman Abbott. Who needs a woman to write it when Linman can just tell you what women want? Briefly, I believe it is because woman feels, if she does not clearly see, that the question of woman's suffrage is more than merely political, that it concerns the nature and structure of society, the home, the church, the industrial organism, the state, the social fabric. In short, he argued that for women to vote and take part in political office would be against their nature. They'd be imitating men and therefore bastardizing womanhood because of God and motherhood and stuff like that. And to a change which involves a revolution in all these, she interposes an inflexible, though generally a silent opposition. It is for these silent women, whose voices are not heard in conventions, who write no leaders, deliver no lectures, and visit no legislative assemblies.
This guy makes sense. Real women are silent. That's the only reason why it seems like so many women are speaking out for rights, because a real woman is silent. So any woman who speaks up isn't a real woman, and thus shouldn't be able to come to the table when it comes to women's rights. Based? Oh, dude, that's super based. I like that. That's a smart guy. That's smart.
But I speak. It is their unspoken thought and feeling I wish to interpret. He's speaking up for women, like a true ally. Bless up, Linman. Going back to Carrie Chapman Catt, she was onto something. Much like today's fight against bodily autonomy, there was a cohort of women resisting women gaining the vote. It was a classical conservative movement that sought to keep the status quo, for the most part. But I'm more interested in the women who were walking contradictions. Those who were outspoken, educated, high status, yet still opposed suffrage. Funnily enough, Carrie Chapman Catt initially.
I really think that, like unironically, they just didn't want to have to work, bro. I honestly think that some of it, like, unironically has to do with, like, some women not wanting to actually, like, sign up for the draft. And that was, I think that was a conversation of, like, a condition that would have to be met for women to vote. And I think that they just didn't want to. I think so. And I wouldn't want to either. You know what I mean? Like, who wants to fight for your country? You know? The only... I had a really bad joke, but it's too inappropriate. I was going to say the only country I want to fight for is my wife's. Am I right? That's really inappropriate. But kind of funny, so I said it anyway. Sorry.
He opposed it. When Congressman Frank Clark of Florida proposed a national referendum for women in 1918, she exclaimed the idea was unconstitutional and pointless. But thankfully, she changed her mind. Same goes for Susan B. Anthony, or Anthony. How do you Americans say it? Anyway, she opposed it in Washington State in 1871, claiming that women's condition of service...
I don't say women's names. I don't look at women. I don't talk to women. All right? Anytime I see a woman, I instantly attack her and I run and I tell my wife that that's not my fault, okay? I'm a real man.
Made them unable to see the issue clearly. Now, it is also worth noting that she also changed her mind, but for white women. Ew. Good rule of thumb is to assume that pretty much everyone involved here was racist. The suffragettes were racist, the suffragists were racist, the anti-suffragists were racist. Just wanted to put that out there in case your school is not allowed to say that their historical faves were racist. Now, back to the question of this video. Why would educated women oppose their own suffrage?
They're so smart.
Anti-suffragists included the likes of Caroline Corbin of Illinois, who co-founded the Association for Advancement of Women and became president of the Illinois Antis. Agnes Irwin, the first dean of Radcliffe College. Mrs. J.B. Lippincott, who promoted scholarships for women, but then became the leader of the Los Angeles Antis. And Annie Nathan Meyer, a founder of Barnard College, who remained so even up until her death in 1951. So, big L for Annie. The female leaders of the US anti-suffrage campaign were generally women of wealth, privilege, social status, and even political power. They were the women who were doing well, comparatively, in this current system. So they had incentive to cling onto a system that privileged them. Opening the vote to women could mean the wrong kind of women getting the vote, i.e. women of color, socialists.
Wait, could black people even vote at this point? Oh, it's like a slippery slope thing. They're just like, oh, if we give them to women, maybe we don't want black women voting one day. Okay, interesting. I guess
and prostitutes.
True.
In 1918, the women's protest had been renamed the Woman Patriot and dedicated itself to the defense of womanhood, motherhood, the family, and the state against suffragism, feminism, and socialism.
Damn.
Where do I sign up? They feared that prostitutes would be much more likely to vote than other women. In order to keep corrupt local politics.
They thought prostitutes would be more likely to vote? Why would they think that? They have too much time on their hands? I feel like they're probably just working all the time, right? I mean, who wants to be
politicians in office and protect their own livelihood, God forbid. As a result, the antis kept bringing up the issue of vicious women voters in congressional hearings. There were approximately 2 million prostitutes in America in the 1870s.
What? That's horrible. What? Has someone ever invented a time machine before? Jesus, that's a lot. How many prostitutes are around now? Well, with OnlyFans, I mean, there's just 150 million prostitutes in America. I'm just curious, like 1 to 2 million prostitutes in the United States. Oh, so there's still the same number of prostitutes, which means that there's less, because I believe that there were less people in the world back then. I know that, at least I wasn't there. So.
And one minister said, "We cannot afford to let this element vote. Respectable women already had influence over lawmakers.
True.
Why would they want to share that influence with..."
Yeah, respectful women already had influence over all lawmakers by marrying them and sucking their dicks. And we don't want these prostitutes that aren't marrying people but still sucking dick to have any influence, guys. Sorry. Sorry for being a little sexist. I'm just making some jokes. But there's a little bit of truth to it. Okay?
Prostitutes.
For back then,
there was an overarching cynicism in political systems. The idea was women uniting for the common good, rather than dividing along party lines, as men did. So this was a major theme for the antis. The idea that women were non-partisan. Men's political activity involved dirty deals, personal attacks, bribery, and corruption. Deals. Respectable, married women held the moral high ground, while politicians occupied the moral low ground. So it wasn't as simple as just,
I guess nothing changed, huh? Jesus.
Women should stay in the kitchen. Don't get me wrong, it's still sexist because it was reinforcing the theory of complementarianism. Women were equal.
Theological view in Christianity, Judaism, and Islam that men and women have different but complementary roles and responsibilities in marriage, family life, and religious leadership. Oh, okay. I mean, that's probably true. We just shouldn't force them. That's it. If a woman wants to, stay in the kitchen and do whatever, there's nothing wrong with that. And if a guy wants to go die in a war, there's nothing wrong with that either. I mean, I personally don't, but hey, you know what? That's why I like to live in America, because it has like a poverty to, military pipeline. So, it's mostly just poor Republicans. And who cares about those people? Certainly not rich Republicans or rich Democrats or really anybody. Unfortunately, guys. Okay. Fight for Republicans' rights too. Anyway, let's move on.
But different. Their role was caring for the local community. And as previously mentioned, members of the Women's National Anti-Suffrage League in London in 1908 were all for women participating in local elections, just not parliamentary ones. For a small minority of anti-suffragists, you could argue that they were approaching the issue from a more progressive standpoint. Like anarchist Emma Goldman, who saw the electoral system as a tool of the powerful, and Beatrice Webb, a founder of the London School of Economics, who was an early advocate for the welfare state. In 1889, she signed a petition against women's suffrage in Britain, believing that economic emancipation was...
Speaking of welfare, I know that it's probably a little bit of a tangent, but we need to unironically fix our welfare system, I feel like the conditionality of our welfare makes it difficult for people to actually get jobs because they feel like they might not be able to get back onto welfare, So if they end up losing their job, we just have to fix the system.
more important than the right to vote. She later changed her mind and campaigned for equal pay and women in academia. And, you know, I can kind of sympathize with this standpoint. I feel like it's parallel with, you know, today's reaction of people who opt out of voting for political reasons as a form of protest against the corrupt system. However, I don't think those people would say, because I don't want to vote, let's not bother even having the right to vote. Like, they still have the choice, and I think they're still for the choice. But anyways, so many of these aforementioned women did change their minds. Even those who opposed suffrage for conservative reasons. Once the 19th Amendment in the USA was passed, many of the women who opposed this exercised that right. Many of whom took the energy they were investing into the anti-suffrage campaign, then took it to the Republican Party. Former members of anti-suffrage groups in New York became involved in the Women's National Republican Club. Former anti-suffragist Ida Tarbell expressed that it would take some time for women to get comfortable with voting, but it's safe to say that, at least in the US, they have. So comfortable that they gleefully take it for granted. And that brings me on to today, 2023.
All right.
The modern day. Are they just pick-me's? Spoiler, nope. So what about women in this day and age that espouse that women shouldn't have the right to vote?
I think it's a virtue signal because they are pick-me's. I think that we're at a point where like women who have the right to vote now, they're like, we shouldn't be able to vote, are just people that know that will never go back to women not being able to vote. And they just say it so that guys will think that they're super cool and based and smart and like LOL. And so that somebody will hopefully pick them. But the problem is none of those women are happy. None of those women are in relationships. And any relationship that those women get into are usually relationships where they're getting like routinely cheated on. And they're just coping by saying, this is okay. I'm respected, but you know that you're not. So it's just, it's a cope, so.
That's even more peculiar than the anti-suffragists. In my opinion, anyway. They were facing the uncertainty of the future. Progress can be scary when it's the unknown. But what about people who want to reverse progress? They're a fascinating species, aren't they? Because we've got the right now, so what they're advocating for is taking it away?
Want the left.
Personally, I am for women keeping the right to vote. If you've got the right to vote, to take it away would take a lot of unnecessary faff. And as I've said, I love seeing dogs at polling stations. So what's happening here? Are they just being pick-me's, begging for ultra-conservative men to accept them?
I think of women back then not being able to vote and having the whole one house, one vote thing. Why would you marry a man who wouldn't vote in your best interest or you wouldn't agree with politically to begin with?
Teehee. They're not like the other girls. They're so low maintenance, they don't even need rights.
The 26th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution was passed by Richard Nixon in 1971. It lowered the voting age from 21 to 18.
Okay. I didn't know that the voting age used to be 21. Should we go back to that point? I don't know. Maybe.
It's passed right at the end of the Vietnam War. The average age.
Oh, and the only reason I'm saying that is because like people are like so like are less mature nowadays, which isn't really their fault. I mean, it's so difficult to move out of your fucking house. It's like hard to grow up because like you really start growing. I think that like obviously part of growing up is getting older. Part of growing up is having different life experiences, and it's a mixture between the two. It's just hard to have life experiences nowadays with how expensive things are. So like maybe you should be a little older, but then again, young people should be able to advocate for themselves. So I think it's fair. If you can go to war, you can vote against having to go to war.
Of a combat soldier was 19. That should have instantly triggered the 19th Amendment. Women are not drafted. Women do not pay a blood price. Women don't pay taxes.
Well, women do pay tax. Okay. Fuck, I didn't even do that. I want to say really quick, like women don't have to do the draft, which I don't think it would be bad if they did. The thing is that like nobody gets drafted anymore, so it doesn't necessarily matter. It really doesn't matter. Nobody. I signed up for the draft. I think you have to legally, as a man, but nobody actually gets drafted, so it really doesn't matter. So you know what I mean. We got plenty of people willing to go.
1-year-olds who have trust funds, they also have to pay tax. Do they get the vote?
Yeah, but they're not. But that's a 1-year-old.
I think this is rare. The women who genuinely believe this are so lost in the alt-right conservative trad wife trad cath sauce that they're drowning in Stockholm syndrome. But to say that this applies to all women who espouse this talking point is too black and white for my liking. So I have split these women into two strands. Okay. Those who are for real and those who are not for real. The ladies who genuinely believe in this have two subsections. The first, as I just mentioned, are those experiencing Stockholm Syndrome. The second are women in the alt-right looking to achieve their extremist conservative...
Or maybe they just know better. Maybe they're just smart enough to know that they're fucking stupid.
Camiel super chatted $5. Can you watch the sad history of suicide by Noddles? It's a long video, so if not today, perhaps as a segment next stream.
What the fuck is Noddles?
Content.
Maybe. What is it about? Maybe. I'll put it on the list.
Utopia.
Gibbs is a former Trump administration official who in the early 2000s ran this think tank called the Society for the Critique of Feminism. And it basically argued several things, one of which was that the U.S. has greatly suffered from women having the right to vote, that women did not possess the necessary qualities to govern, and that women should not be allowed to be in the workplace.
It's incredible considering we don't think that women have the right qualities to govern, how we let so many women be fucking single mothers, huh? You know, I mean, who are the? I mean, if anything, those deadbeat dads leaving their kids, they must be real fucking feminists for thinking that a woman could take care of their kid. What a backwards fucking society we live in, huh?
Basically.
In the US, women do typically vote for Democratic candidates more than men do. Now, this gets a bit more dicey when you break down women into class, education level, and race.
And
but
attractiveness
there is truth
level.
In that. In general,
Because only the attractive ones vote Republican. Am I right, fellas? Am I right, fellas? Hillary, more like Pizzagate.
women do tend to vote more liberal than men.
Abortion is becoming the issue that's driving turnout. Last night, exit polls, you guys talked about it earlier, Democrats win independence in a non-presidential year.
How pathetic is it that that's like the hot button issue? Like, I mean, I kind of get it, but I also like there are so many huge issues like wealth disparity, and we're sitting here debating on like abortion. It just feels like we're not where we need to be, honestly.
And it was because these women just went crazy.
Darn women.
They went crazy.
So I can see the logic. If you want your Republican, conservative, unseasoned, white bread utopia, removing women as voters could help. That being said, women are no monolith. Women who are white and conservative are more likely to vote Republican.
It was women that got Trump elected.
In fact, if you compare white women voters voting Republican to black
Hold on, what did you just say?
women who voters could help. That being said, women are no monolith. Women who are white and conservative are more likely to vote Republican.
Well, yeah, no shit. They're conservative. Of course they're going to vote the Conservative Party.
It was women that got Trump elected.
In fact, if you compare white women voters voting Republican to black women voters in recent elections, holy smokes, the difference is staggering.
Okay.
I do not support all women. Some of you bitches are very dumb. Why would
That's
you...
fucking base, though. That's true. I don't. That's the same reason I don't support all men. Some of these motherfuckers are dumb as shit. What do you want me to tell you?
Alienate a significant proportion of your voter base by saying that they shouldn't be able to vote. That seems counterintuitive, right? Here's my thing. They know that ain't gonna happen. They need women to bulk up their numbers. Because women turn out to vote more than men. It's a fake talking point.
I wouldn't doubt it.
This brings me onto the second category. Those who are not for real. A very academic title, I know. I think most of the people, i.e. reactionaries, who make this argument know that what they're saying is ridiculous.
It's
they know
bollocks,
full
am I
well
right?
that this is an unachievable goal. In countries where women have had the right to vote for a very long time and are in government and blah 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 blah. But yeah, they don't genuinely believe it. We live in an age now that in order to win in conservative politics, you've got to be even more over the top and provocative as your predecessor and or rival. And this brings me on to the first subcategory. Reactionaries who want to trigger the libs.
Personally, this is where people take me out of context and say I don't think women should vote.
Shit.
Personally, if I in 2022 had the choice where I had to go fight in the front lines just like the men in a war, or I could give up my right to vote, I would give up my right to vote.
Well, yeah, anybody would. Like, other men would do that. Do you think I'm trying to fight in the front lines? No. Okay. Let some stupid, unintelligent fucking Republican... No, I'm just kidding. Sorry. I'm being a little too mean. It's a joke. I was only saying that because I think 70% of people who serve in the military are from like poor Republican states. I could be wrong about that statistic. Anyway, yeah, but the thing, like, again, like, it would make sense on paper to have women like have to sign up for the draft, right? It's like, it's unfair. Thing is that we haven't enforced the draft like, I don't even know, like 50 plus years. So it's like, at this point, it doesn't really matter. Plus, like, what is a woman gonna do? Like, they're gonna fucking, you know, I don't know, wash their clothes. I don't know. I don't even have like a joke in my head. I don't even have it in me. I'm just so beaten down, guys. I'm so sorry. So
And that's what happened back then, is they equated voting
he
with
says
going...
the 19th Amendment led the whole U.S. government to increase in size, adding, we conclude that the U.S. has suffered as a result of women's suffrage. Now,
that's true. If you just think about it from that perspective, that we increased the size of the government, we've suffered because the government is bad. Okay? So.
Other occasions as well, he also praised an organization that was actively trying to repeal the 19th Amendment. His own website that he maintained called this organization great. He even wrote them an email that they then posted on their website in the early 2000s that said, "You have my support." So we reached out to the Gibbs campaign yesterday. They told us that he made this website to provoke the left.
I.e., setting a goal that you know you can never achieve. And
he probably made that website because he actually means it. And then he just tried to play it off as like an LOL, just provoking the left because he realized people were shitting on him for his dumb fucking take.
Living it out because you enjoy the fight. It's simply more fodder for the chuds to clap like seals. Honestly, letting women vote in this country wasn't one of the best ideas. Females vote with emotion and overwhelmingly support democratic feel-good policies that take away our actual rights. I'd rather lose my right to vote than lose my right to defend myself with a firearm. Lots of emotional responses to this tweet. As always, thanks for proving my...
I think that we have a huge firearm problem. And like all memes aside, because I believe people should be able to have guns, but I also, this is crazy. I think that good guys with a gun should have more power. And there's no gooder guy with a gun than a police officer, except when they're doing a systemic racism. Outside of that, I think it would be great to give them the resources they need, specifically considering like one of the biggest causes of death, or excuse me, one of the biggest massive correlations with gun violence are domestic abusing men. I think it'd be great if we could just get guns out of those men's hand. If they are domestic abusers who beat their partners, they shouldn't be able to have guns. And if we actually enforce the laws that take away those guns, we see a lot of people not fucking dead. But we can't even do the bare minimum of enforcing active laws on the books. You shouldn't have a gun, but they still get access to these fucking guns. It's crazy. It's nuts. And to all the annoying, obnoxious, dumb fucking conservative people that are like, well, yeah, but look at cities like New York. They have such a lot of gun violence. They have really heavy laws. Yeah, did you know that like 3/4 of the guns that are used in crimes in fucking New York are from not New York? They're from out of state. They're from people who go to other states that have lax gun laws, and they buy guns and they fucking shoot people. So like, really, like, let's be a little more intelligent about these conversations here. You know what I mean? It's fucking crazy. It really is.
Point, everyone. Now, this subcategory does have some crossover with the second subcategory, which I'll call recruiters. Saying inflammatory things like women shouldn't have the right to vote makes you stand out, and it's a tasty morsel to attract a reactionary audience.
I don't think women should vote. Lord Jesus, keep on going. No women,
keep going.
You can't vote.
Come.
No birth control. Keep it going.
Keep it going, but I won't date you. Keep saying things that I want to hear, but I'm never going to date you. That's why nobody wants to fuck you. So.
Yeah, because it's always freedom without responsibility. And
I
so,
love
like,
it.
freedom
without responsibility.
I'll tell you why, though. I'll tell you why. Because it's freedom without responsibility. I believe in consequences for your decision. So the men know if they vote someone batshit crazy into power, you guys get drafted.
Although that was funny. The girl who was like, I'd rather lose my right to vote than my right to bear arms. If I had to choose, she's not wrong.
They know what they're doing. They're just projecting onto the big screen, singing their greatest hits to their audience. Like ABBA Voyage, but shitter. So, I have asserted that women's suffrage isn't under any serious threat, at least in places like the US and the UK, my primary audience on YouTube. It's important to bear in mind that in some places, the right for women to vote is relatively new, and also, having the legal right to vote does not necessarily mean that voting in practice is realistic, even in the US and the UK. Voter repression materializes in insidious ways, like ID requirements, lack of accessibility to polling stations, not accommodating people who speak different languages, having police present, etc., etc. International initiatives like...
I don't think that having police present is going to make it so somebody cannot vote. I understand if we get like super like woke about it, like, yeah, I understand like systemic racism and stuff, but the bigger issue is like targeting particular like patterns, like she was saying in some capacity, especially for in some areas with like black voters. I think they were doing this in Georgia. There's different patterns that like black people would engage in because they tend to be poorer in those areas, and that's voting on Sundays, for instance, because they take church buses, or since they do have lack of access to infrastructure to help them vote. there's like fewer polling stations, so there's longer lines. So what would they do? There's some people that would maybe sell food or hand out food or water on the lines. They would target that, make it so you couldn't do that. They might work longer hours, so they would reduce the polling hours from like 9 to 5, or from like 7 to 7 to like 9 to 5. These are these are the ways where like those are the ways that like kind of systemic racism kind of rears its head now, outside of like historical impacts, because of course we did the whole slavery and redlining and whatnot, but even today the targeting voting patterns of a particular audience, that's kind of how these things manifest. You could argue it's not racist, they just know that black people are going to vote more Democrat in those more Republican areas, so they don't want the more Democrats voting. But since the majority of the people that they try to suppress are black, it's a racism. So
like the United Nations program on women's political participation focused on
and I know people might be like, well, why don't they just bring their IDs, blah blah blah. It could, like I said, they have shittier infrastructure, which means it's harder to get to the DMV. They also have less money. They don't really have public transportation, and it's expensive to get a license. It might only be $50, but $50 is a lot of money to somebody that doesn't have $50. It'd be a huge inconvenience. Now, I'm all for voter ID laws if you make it so that everybody gets a free ID. Oh, I want voter ID laws to make sure that people are voting that they're actually citizens. Okay, just give them all for free. Well, I don't want to do that. Why? Why not? Like, that would be the perfect solution when we'd all win, right? If it was really because you just wanted to make sure that people were actual citizens voting, then make all IDs free. And we're voter IDs, make those like identification cards free. Boom, we solved the problem. Well, you don't want to do that? Oh, I wonder why, Interesting.
Barriers so women can vote. These barriers are a lot more complicated than just, do women have the right to vote? Because apart from the Vatican City, technically every country in the world grants women the right to vote. However, issues like illiteracy suppress women's votes. Nearly 2/3 of the world's illiterate adults are women. Women in traditionally male-dominated societies are less likely to have IDs than men. And even if they do have an ID, it might be carried by their husband, who can withhold it, thereby preventing them from voting. And then there's childcare responsibilities that prevent women from leaving the home, just to name a few. When I say that the vote isn't going anywhere in places like the US...
That's why I'm saying, though, children are the children yearn for the mines. Because if they were at the mines, you wouldn't have to babysit them and you can go vote. So...
and the UK. It's because even the most bonkers Republicans know that it would be disadvantageous for everyone. Now, you might say, but Tara, they repealed Roe v. Wade. Here's the thing. Even though the majority of Americans support Roe v. Wade remaining intact, even in red states, the gender gap in opposing or supporting abortion is narrow. In fact, women are slightly more likely to identify as pro-life than men. I'm currently working on a long-ass video about pro-life feminists, I know, and after attending the annual March for Life rally in London in September, I've come to learn that women make up the majority of this movement, even if it's men primarily making the laws. Anyways, what I'm saying in a roundabout way is that women are crucial in building political movements. Men can't do it alone. And I appreciate that I'm speaking in binary terms here, however, I have yet to come across a pro-life non-binary person, so they're not getting called out today. Perhaps another time. When looking back at the original anti-suffragists, it's safe to say that resistance to change is a key feature of human nature. We can see it in all points of history. So what about women today who spout this talking point in the year of 2023? Well, for the most part, they are just trolling the libs.
And look at the results of having women being able to vote. If it weren't for women getting the right to vote, we would have a way more conservative government. It's the fact that women are very emotional thinkers that leads them to overwhelmingly vote for Democrats. America was much...
Let's just be real here, really quick. Men are also emotional. They just tend to manifest their emotions differently. Okay? They manifest their emotions in anger. And there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. People that say, like, that's not a good thing. I don't think it's a bad thing, as long as you don't get, like, toxic in your anger expression. Like, it's okay to be angry, take a breath, and walk away. It's not okay to be angry and destroy your entire collection of Pokemon cards last year. Okay? It's not okay. I'm just kidding. I never destroyed it. I don't even know where they are. I think my mother stole them. I don't know. Anyway, they're not like worth anything anymore. They used to be worth, like, lots of money. Now they're worth, like, $150 or something for the whole set. At least the original 1 to 150, kind of a ripoff, but whatever. Still cool to have the cards.
much better off before women gain the right to vote. So I say repeal the 19th Amendment, get women back in the kitchen. And if anyone has any store recommendations for where I can get a new apron, please let me know in the comments below. I am dying for a new apron.
So I feel inclined to say, just don't give them the attention. It's a distraction from real issues we could be addressing. That being said, it is important to point out extremism when it's looking you in the face. Ultimately, these people do have platforms. Everyone and their mum has heard of just pearly things now. I can't help.
Well, yeah, I don't doubt that like women would have platform shoes. Don't all women? Isn't that just high heels, right?
But think that debating topics like whether women should have the right to vote, which is a moot point because they already do, is giving legitimacy to the counterpoint that they shouldn't. Personally, I have neither the time nor energy to do so. My patience is very limited. I'm just unable to be in an argument with someone whose primary purpose is to mess with me and to get a rise out of me. I think that's growing up with older brothers. The girlies who know. However, the purpose of disproving reactionaries isn't to get the reactionaries themselves to change their minds because their livelihood depends on having silly opinions. The benefit is to potentially convert their audience. So if you have the patience to debate someone on this, power to ya. Couldn't be me. Anyway, thank you for taking the time to watch and let me know your thoughts on this. I'm in two minds on how to deal with people who spout these talking points, so please share your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a like because one like equals one vote for a woman and that will trigger the chance.
Now I can't like it.
And make sure to check out Aura. Right, bye-bye. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye.
That was pretty good. I'll like it.
I want Papa Gut to pee on my face, but just as a friend. There's nothing weird about that. I want him to pee on my face.